I was so insecure about this at the beginning, and Paul was really helpful. And he said that if Shakespeare is performed right, you don't have to understand the words. You feel the emotions. And Shakespeare, he writes with this beat, like there is a rhythm. Like his language is not just about meaning, but it's about rhythm. It's about vibration. And when he said that, I go, oh, well, I can do that. I know I'm very sensitive. I can feel things.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a powerful story of love and loss inspires a great work of literature in director Chloé Zhao's period drama, Hamnet. Based on the novel by Maggie O'Farrell, the film follows Agnes and William Shakespeare as they live a pastoral life with their family in the countryside. When their young son Hamnet dies, they both deal with the loss in their own respective ways, sowing the seeds for the creation of the classic play, Hamlet. In addition to Hamnet, Zhao's other directorial credits include the feature films Eternals, The Rider, and Songs My Brothers Taught Me. She won the DGA Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Feature Film for her 2020 feature, Nomadland. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Zhao spoke with director Barry Jenkins about filming Hamnet. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
I knew that was going to happen. I'll tell a quick story. We were just talking backstage that I maybe wasn't the right person to moderate this Q&A because I have a 4-month-old at home. And are you guys all right? Are you guys good?
I told him not to call Barry. I said, you just had a baby.
But I felt like I had to. This is my compatriot. And when I made the show, The Underground Railroad, Chloé very bravely watched all 10 hours of it in a pinch to pinch hit for me. But the quick story I want to tell is I watched this film, not with you guys. I watched it in a theater by myself. And when you do that, there's this person there to prevent piracy who's sitting in the room with you, someone not in the film industry. And oh my God, this dude was losing his mind. Like it was like this tough, like 27-year-old dude. And so I thought I should ask if you guys are okay because that audience of one was just wrecked by this film. You've made 5 features now, and they all have a very specific film language, film grammar. Just talk to me about adapting this novel and bringing your voice, your vision to it. What was it that grabbed you, that made you want to make this film?
Hi. Hello. I thank you, Barry, for being such a trooper and coming to do this, leaving your baby at home. Oh, okay. So I think the first 4 films I made in my 30s. And in my 30s, I was very interested in chasing the horizons. I couldn't stay still. The cameras are always searching, trying to catch anything that's exciting, doesn't want to miss anything. I was like a treasure hunter. And then after Eternals, I went through a 4-year sort of midlife crisis after Nomadland and Eternals back to back. And in those 4 years, I realized that I'm no longer drawn to the horizon. I became very interested in the underworld. And so what happened is that I'm curious what it's like to trap myself in one frame, on one stage, sitting with myself in silence, and there's nowhere to go but to go inward, to descend into myself, to meet my shadow sister. If many of you know about the first myth ever written, the myth of Inanna's descent, is about her going to the underworld to meet her shadow sister, Ereshkigal. And by meeting the shadow sister, she comes up whole, right? And I think I was on that journey when this film came to me. And I thought, oh, wow, this is a definite descent and it's going to push me further down on my journey. And so the language of the film changed because of that. The framing and in general is different than the first four.
You also have different collaborators on this film than the films in your previous filmography. I want to talk about a few of them, but in particular, the cinematographer, Lukasz Zal.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, I got that right. Lukasz Zal, who also shot Zone of Interest and Ida, two really wonderful films. You can round of applause for that. Yes.
Yeah.
You seem like you had an emotion, a tone, a feeling that was within you, and this material matched up with that. Bringing other people into that is a process. It's like a relationship you have to build. Talk to me about building a relationship and then building this visual language with your cinematographer.
Yeah. Zone of Interest was a very important film for this film. It was, I was so blown away by the film, and I asked John if I can steal the language for this. These CCTV shots, I call them CCTV shots. And I said, I'm going to do that in Hamnet, just so you know. Also, I'm taking half of your crew, which I did, pretty much. So that, from what I said earlier, I'm looking for containment. I'm looking for somebody who is good at containing within a frame, and Ida Cold War, Lukasz has that talent, and so I was excited for him to contain my chaos, and that combination, chaos and order. That collision is why the universe exists. So I was really excited to meet him that way. And we kind of look at each other and go like, we are so different. How can we find that harmony? Which in some way, what Agnes and Will, what they represent archetypally is that as well. And so working with Lukasz a lot is about me talking to him just in a spiral, in circles, and then just leaving him alone. Very much on a daily basis, he's doing it. I don't even have a conversation with him.
Watching the film, one would assume that you are a big Shakespeare, that you've watched Hamlet, you've read Hamlet many, many times. I was surprised to find that wasn't the case, but listening to you talk about your approach to making the film, your approach to making any film, I also understand how the characters of Will and Agnes are the most important thing, or the energy, these archetypes. So talk to me about adapting a work that is essentially about giving birth to one of the most revered texts in human history, but not having that text as a totem and still doing service to it. You can say, Barry, I didn't do it that way, and that's cool too.
It's just, I'm just happy with myself that I can speak modern English well, finally. That's not easy, guys, for any of you who's not English, not your first language. It's very hard to understand it. So even though I always want to be somebody who knows Shakespeare, it's really nice to be that person. But truthfully, I don't know Shakespeare. I am drawn to the symbols and the archetypes I see in images that pops up. I'm like, whatever this guy is doing is interesting to me.
As a baseline.
Yeah. It's interesting. And so then I have Maggie O'Farrell, I have Paul Mescal, I have Emily Watson, I have Jessie Buckley. So I don't need to know Shakespeare. That's why Maggie wrote it with me. And I told her if she doesn't, I won't do the film. Because I knew I needed her to bridge into the imaginary world that she. Let
me just in case people miss the credits, Maggie O'Farrell wrote the book Hamnet that the film is based on.
And she was like, when she was a teenager, she dressed all in black and she was doing the monologue at a graveyard. That's Maggie of the Hamlet. That's how much she loves this play. And since high school, she's been wondering about Hamnet because in school, she heard from a teacher that Shakespeare's son is named Hamnet. And she goes, oh, well, there's he wrote Hamlet 4 years after his son died. And how come it's never been mentioned? And that's been staying with her all these years. So I look at Maggie not just as a writer, but she's one of the cast members. She and Jessie combined is Brady from the writer. Is someone who's going to channel the character, but also a bridge into the world that I have no access to. What was your question?
I think you answered it, bro.
Okay, good.
I think you answered it. You mentioned the cast. Talk about casting the film. Paul and Jessie, I think, are faces that people know. I think these child actors are incredible. A round of applause for that. As someone who's directed child actors, it's one of the most interesting things that we can do in this profession. So how'd you find the kids in this film, and talk about building some very complex scenes and sequences with them?
I really wish I have better answers. But I think casting is 80%, 85% the job. It's just finding the right kids. Because if a child, if it's an adult actor having this situation, I just kill myself. But meaning like if a child actor can't be present moment to moment on set, they rehearse at home and it's over. You can't, it's just not something you can twist. Or if they don't have the ability to, or if it's an adult actor, they could have the skills. Not everyone feels safe to be present when let the mask off. And I learned that it's totally fine. That's why you have techniques. But a child is really rare. They would have that level of the technique to be able to pull off, to be just as good as presence, right? And so when we're casting, we had to make sure we put the children through everything. Jacoby will sit here across from me and I will give him the ET treatment. If any of you know the ET audition, so I went so much further with the permission of him and his parents. I just did everything to him, and to see of all ranges, to see if he will react to me authentically, moment by moment. So once he passed that test, then it's just about letting him be, and trying to, when I go to set, I rarely think about character arcs or what each of the actors should be feeling. We don't have these conversations, but we do things like, in prep, we do things like dream work and we do somatic work. We do a lot of body-based work. And the goal is to try to connect if you believe in this, to connect the unconscious of the actor through the unconscious, which the collective unconscious is, defies time and space, and connect Jessie with Agnes and connect Jacoby with Hamnet, and through their dreams and through body work and that kind of creating shared memories, letting the Shakespeare family lie down and drop them into this meditative, active imagination state, and then try to bring up shared memories from their unconscious. Just building things like that. We don't rehearse the scenes, but you kind of look at it and go, is this going to work? Does it help? But when you work with the subconscious and then pull things out of the unconscious, it plants things in your body, in your psyche, that when the right moment on set, when the container is there to require something, it's going to come through you in a way that you don't even expect, like Jessie's scream of grief, right? That is not something she thought she was going to do, or I told her. So the children, if they can be present, if we give them some of those somatic prep work, it just happens. I wish I have more specific thing I can say on the day.
That was pretty damn specific, let me tell you. I also think, too, it's really interesting to take that approach to Shakespeare because, as you said, look, I speak English, but I'm from a place where the English is different than the English people speak in buildings like this. And so I had to learn and tune my ear and catch up. So Shakespeare was always very difficult for me. You're listening to it and it's like, Jesus Christ, I need a roadmap for all these words. But you're working from a place of gut feeling and almost like something Alvin Ailey would call blood memories. And I think approaching Shakespeare in that way is a really interesting way to breathe something, I won't say new, I'll say different, into what it's like to experience William Shakespeare. So thank you for that. What I did want to ask you was, working with children, working with adults can be very different, but it sounds like the approach is the same for everyone in the cast. Are there ever times where in doing that work, getting a scene on its feet, you're thinking consciously of having the camera at a remove or in a position so that when these things do spring forth, you will capture them? Or is this something that reacts to the thing making an appearance on your set?
I knew the DGA Q&A is going to be harder because I have to, because I'm a very instinctual director, so I don't know these things. I can't, but it's good for me to try to understand the process. But
think of it this way: there are so many young filmmakers that listen to this after we have this conversation.
Yeah.
And we want to put them on game.
I try.
Okay.
Well, I just want to say quickly about the Shakespeare thing you picked up. I was so insecure about this at the beginning, and Paul was really helpful. And he said that if Shakespeare is performed right, you don't have to understand the words. You feel the emotions. And Shakespeare, he writes with this beat, like there is a rhythm. Like his language is not just about meaning, but it's about rhythm, it's about vibration. And when he said that, I go, oh, well, I can do that. I know I'm very sensitive. I can feel things. So when they're performing the final 20 minutes of the film, I'm sitting in the back. Me and Lukasz have no idea what they're saying. He's Polish and his English is not that great. And so we both are sitting there looking at it. And I understand words. I understand a couple words here and there, but not the whole meaning. But then especially when Paul is performing, I feel things. And I understood what he meant. And so actually me not understanding the words is what Agnes is experiencing. Because she also kind of will understand it, but not as much, But the energy that Paul is giving out will be very different than an actor who didn't know the background of this, right? Another player on the stage. So if my body started to react to Paul's performance, then I know it's right. So I was very much directing from that place since I didn't understand the language. The camera.
Yes, I want to talk about the camera in this film.
Yeah, the camera. Because I also work as an editor as well. I did this with Fonzie. I find that this is just what I think. I don't know if it's right or not. But whenever we cut, I lose tension. And it's usually supplemented by revealing something else, very surprising or in juxtaposition, right? That's the beauty of editing. But in this case, in this film, pretty much in every scene, you know what's going to happen. It's like someone's going to work and his wife is upset. Like, there's not much of a coverage I can do that's so surprising. But then there's also masterful filmmakers that can make those edits, like Wong Kar-wai, for example, but for me, I was in a place where my brain my brain doesn't think that way. But what I was excited about is how much can I contain the energy of two polarizing forces going at each other within a frame and let it build. And so that you feel when the explosion happens, it's like a is like a blast towards the camera. And that's where the distance of the camera is. You know, you see them do it once and you kind of go where, and my body is the signal, by the way, because my body is going to be your body. You'll be standing where the camera is when you're watching. So if they are rehearsing and playing around, or even like when we're shooting, if I'm not in the right place, then my body is either feeling way too much or not enough. And then I will move based on what my body is feeling.
Yeah, the sequences in the film where Hamnet is in the in-between space, the camera's in a really interesting position in those scenes. The focus, the aperture.
Is it the handhelds? Is it handheld?
Yes.
Well,
I think
it's down a dolly and
there's like the black door, sort of like behind. It's here, it's there. It's you talked about going down to the underworld. It's sort of like a personification of that. It's interesting in thinking of sort of this idea of directing with feel, which is what this whole conversation has been about. I don't know if they title these things, but Chloé Zhao, feel your way to the image. I
don't know how to do it any other way. This shuts down. This like sometimes just disassociate and gone. And
you know what? We need to pause this conversation for 1 second. You are Chloé motherfucking Zhao.
I know.
You got. I mean, I know you don't care about the statues. You got statues, girl. And when you walked out here,
statues too.
Yeah, that's all right. But I'm not the one who made this film. You know, we here. We here with you, bruh. So you earn that. Stand in it.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
A round of applause for Chloé Zhao, please.
I got a little intimidated coming to the DGA. I haven't done one of those because, you know, No Man Land was virtue. So it's really scary to be in a room of DGA members. So I'm just a little bit intimidated. But I will say that, you know, I'll say this. You see that the door, you mentioned the door, and the motif of the void is massive in this film. And when I say like feeling things through, and I was in Pompeii last week, and I asked a woman who's worked there for 20 years, I said, what makes a good archaeologist? And then she said that, you know, a good archaeologist will come to a site with a vision and an idea of what might have happened to this place. And then they start excavating. And every day they find a little fragment. And so they have to come to work and they look at this fragment and they go, what is the story that's trying to come through this fragment? And most of the time it won't match their initial vision. And a good archaeologist, she said, would let go of the vision and allow the story come through and come to work every day, look at all these fragments and trying to contain it in some kind of order, and yet let the mystery come through the other half of the time. And that is a very intricate balance. I was like, oh, I think I like to think that is what good for as a storyteller, that I believe stories are not, our Australian Aborigines believe that of the dream time, that our creators dreamed this reality into existence. And I like to believe that stories exist outside of us, past, present, future, and it's bigger than us. It's not something we can control like we always want to, come out of our own mind and then create an environment, control everything to make it happen. I think that is also beautiful. But for me, what excites me is that I listen and then I wanted to see what story wants to come through me, because I am at a certain point in my life and I was the right conduit for that story. So in case that story doesn't work, or I never have to question whether that's what the world wants or not, because it wasn't my decision. So in some way, there's less pressure. So the reason why it feels a little bit like I'm resistant to try to talk about this is my idea, because I really do think most of the time it isn't. But it doesn't mean I don't work hard to be the conduit for Jesse to have that performance. And I do this because I ask my actors to come to set every day to hold the tension between consciousness and unconsciousness. And to do that, your body is, and your psyche is a lightning conductor. And you have to be present in every moment. And that is a marathon. That is so exhausting. And Jessie was doing that. So then when she screams, it's not just her grief. It's the grief of the whole crew. It's the collective grief that she's feeling. And then, so it is still hard work, but it doesn't feel like I don't have the ownership of it as much.
I think it's, one, thank you for saying that. Again, when I do these conversations, I approach it in the sense that some young person is going to listen to this. And I think they need to hear that it's okay to release control, over these masterful images that it's assumed that we create from A to B to Z. I think it was really badass of you to say that every scene in this movie, what's going to happen in the scene. So let's take that off the table. Yeah. That's not the point. What is the thing to be excavated, with the materials that we have, for the materials being our personal selves, our presence. There's a scene in the film where I believe it's after Agnes gives birth. And it's weird. It's funny what hits you when you watch a movie based on where you are in your life, where she hands him the baby and she goes off with her brother. And he looks back at the tree, and where there should be the roots, it just becomes this void. And it knocked me down because of what I went through 4 months prior to seeing your film. Intellectually, I don't know why that arithmetically, I don't know, whatever the other word, mathematically, I don't know how you get to that image. Yeah. But I was so glad that image was there. It feels like the end result of this process that you've been describing during this talk.
Right on. I'm sorry. This is another example of when you work with your own life. And really, I believe our lives, right now we have a lot of rules of what's right or wrong to what's the right kind of creative environment, and rightfully so. But really, we are no different than people in a wagon putting on a shadow puppet show. Our life, our whole spectrum of our experiences is the art itself. So to have a really sanitized working environment, sometimes I'm missing the point. So I was working on the script, and last May I was in Ukraine, and I was with somebody who was making a documentary about a strip of forest in the front line. And when I left Ukraine, I picked up Lukasz in Poland, and we went to Wales, and it's beautiful spring. And when I was in Wales in the forest where we filmed Hamnet, and location scouting, and just trying to find the language. It was just me and Lukasz and a camera. And I was getting images from the front line in Ukraine, in that strip of forest. And I see these holes in the ground. There's these dugouts, and it's also landmine holes. And then I walk around my forest, the safe, beautiful, peaceful spring forest, and I see these holes in the ground. And I remember sitting in front of it, sobbing. On one hand, feeling like it connects me to that other person's experience, but also there is some bittersweetness that the void is coming for all of us in the end. It doesn't matter how we get there. And it doesn't matter how unimaginable, how confusing our world is, why these things are not happening. The rest is silence. We're all headed there. And yet it's in that void, in that compost, new life comes through. All living things must die, passing through nature to eternity. And I was like, this is the film. And I remember Lukasz running over. He's like, I'm Polish. I understand this. Let's film the whole. I was like, So I'm just crying, and he's like filming the whole with the Max Richter music playing in the background. And then he lifted the camera up to the sky. And he did this. It wasn't the exact shot, but then we go, oh, wow, this is the story. And he is up there in the sky with his stories, his intellect, and she's down here. They need everything about that. And we knew that was the film. And then that started to make us think about threshold, right? And doorways. We started filming a lot of doorways. All came from that. But that that all sort of feels like a gift. But if you listen, they're all there, and everything is never too much, your feelings. Everything that you go through in life, that's almost so difficult sometimes. And these are this is where the best stuff is. So, yeah.
If I didn't know it, I know it now. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for the director of Hamnet, Chloé Zhao.
You know it better than I.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America